There is a town in Canada where the post office, the church, the school, and every house were physically moved to a new location. Not rebuilt, moved. The government gave residents a choice: accept relocation or lose all services. Most left. Some never forgave the decision. The town exists today in a different place than where it was founded. This happened more than once. Across Canada, entire communities were relocated, some by force, some by flood, some by the discovery of resources beneath their homes. The stories are not in textbooks. The towns exist. The history is documented. And in several cases, the residents are still angry. We ranked 7 Canadian towns where entire communities were relocated on 4 criteria: scale of displacement, degree to which the move was forced versus chosen, long-term impact on community identity, and whether the original site still exists. Number 7. Garnish, Newfoundland, population around 500 today. Resettled through Newfoundland's centralization program of the 1950s and 1960s, which relocated hundreds of outport communities across the province. The program offered cash payments to residents willing to relocate to designated growth centers. Garnish absorbed families from smaller surrounding communities deemed too isolated to service. Those communities no longer exist. Bell Alient Fiber, broadband available. Average house price, $95,000. Why it ranks 7th. The displacement was real but distributed across many small communities over 2 decades rather than concentrated in one forced move. Garnish represents the receiving end of Newfoundland resettlement, not a single dramatic relocation event. Number 6. Val-Jalbert, Quebec. Built in 1901 around a pulp mill near Lac-Saint-Jean. When the mill closed in 1927, the entire population of 900 left within months. The town was not relocated. It was evacuated by economic collapse, family by family. The buildings still stand. Val-Jalbert is now a historic village and tourist site. The houses, the convent, the general store, all preserved as they were left nearly a century ago. No permanent residence, provincially owned, accessible by car from Roberval. Why it ranks 6th. The only complete ghost town on this list where the original site is entirely intact and publicly accessible. The community dispersed rather than moved together. A different kind of relocation story than the forced moves above it on this list. Number 5. Uranium City, Saskatchewan, population around 70 today, down from 2,500 in 1980. When the uranium mines closed in 1982, the provincial government organized a mass evacuation. Residents were flown out, houses were abandoned. An entire functioning town was emptied in months. Satellite internet. Average house price, $25,000 for habitable structures. The evacuation was technically voluntary, but with no employment, no services, and government-subsidized flights out, the choice was effectively made for residents. 70 people remain today in a town built for thousands. Why it ranks 5th. One of the most complete community dispersals in Canadian history outside wartime. Ranks 5th because a remnant community remains and the move was technically voluntary. Number 4. Camano, British Columbia, built in the 1950s by Alcan Aluminum to house workers operating a remote hydroelectric facility. The town had schools, a hospital, and a population of around 500. In 1999, Alcan announced it was closing the town. Residents had no choice. The company owned everything. Residents were given relocation packages and moved to Kitimat. The town was demolished. The hydroelectric facility continues to operate, unmanned. No permanent residents. Accessible only by boat or float plane. Why it ranks 4th. Camano represents the corporate town model. Residents who built lives in a place they did not own, removed when the economic calculation changed. The complete demolition distinguishes it from sites where buildings remain. Nothing is left. Number 3. Gagnon, Quebec, population 0. built in the 1960s for iron ore mining. At peak, 3,500 people lived here in a fully planned community. The mine closed in 1985. The provincial government organized relocation. The entire population was moved to Septiles within months. Buildings were demolished or abandoned. The road to the site exists. The foundations are visible. Why it ranks third? A complete planned town of 3,500 people erased within a single year. The provincial government actively removed infrastructure rather than simply abandoning it. That totality distinguishes Gagnon from towns that emptied more gradually. Number 2. The St. Lawrence Seaway towns, Ontario and Quebec. The construction of the St. Lawrence Seaway between 1954 and 1959 required flooding land along the river. 6 Ontario communities were relocated: Altsville, Ferrans Point, Dickinson's Landing, Wales, Mills, Roches, and Moulinet. Parts of Morrisburg and Iroquois were moved to higher ground. Over 6,500 people were displaced. Homes were physically moved on flatbed trucks. Churches were relocated. Cemeteries were moved. The original sites are now under the St. Lawrence River. On calm days, the foundations of the drowned towns are visible from the surface. Bell Fiber serves the relocated communities. Average house prices in Iroquois and Morrisburg, $210,000 to $240,000. Why it ranks second: the largest forced community displacement in Canadian peacetime history. 6,500 people, multiple complete communities, permanent flooding of original sites. Ranks second because the relocated communities were rebuilt with government support and most maintained social cohesion through the process. Number 1. Davis Inlet, Labrador. The Mushuau Innu community was relocated twice, first in 1948 from the mainland to an island, and again in 2002 to a new mainland community called Natuashish. The 1948 relocation was made without meaningful community consent. The Innu, nomadic caribou hunters, were moved to an island that severed them from their traditional land-based practices. The government's goal was to settle the community for administrative purposes. The suffering that followed, documented over decades, is directly traceable to that forced removal. The 2002 relocation to Natuashish was intended to correct the damage. New infrastructure was built. The underlying harm caused by 1948 had already spread across generations. Satellite internet, population around 900, housing primarily government provided. Why it ranks first: the displacement was forced without consent. The community was relocated twice, the second time as an attempt to repair the first. The long-term damage is documented and ongoing. The original island site exists as an abandoned settlement. No other relocation on this list carried this cost. Conclusion: 7 towns, Garnish to Davis Inlet, each relocated by government decision, corporate calculation, economic collapse, or rising water. The people who lived in these places did not choose to leave. The decision was made for them. The towns exist today, in new locations, underwater, in ruins, or only in the memories of the people who were moved. Your move.